It's Open Air with John Marsh and Dick Aldrich on News Radio, KWOS 950, 104.5.
KWOS News Time, 8:37. KWOS Open Air, like the man said, John Marsh and Dick Aldrich. On the ballot, you will see Cole County's Prosecutor Mark Richardson running for re-election. Mark joins us in studio. Sir, welcome back.
Well, good morning, John. Thank you very much for having me.
For the few people that do not know Mark Richardson, how about the bio?
Well, sure. I came here in 1984 as an assistant attorney general under then John Ashcroft, who was our state attorney general. Got a job as the assistant prosecutor, one of the assistants in Cole County, where I worked for 6 years, 85 to 92. Then I was in private practice 15 years. 7 of that I served as the part-time municipal judge for Jefferson City, and then became the elected prosecutor January of 2007, where this is my 12th year to serve as the Cole County elected prosecutor.
Talk to us about the challenges, Mark. For those of us who work pretty closely with the prosecutor's office on the news side, we know about the crush of cases and how busy you guys over there, but maybe the average listener may not.
Well, we do have a lot of cases, somewhat attributed to the drugs that came especially across the border big time during the 8 years of the previous presidential administration, when there did not seem to be as much done to check that flow. Now we have very pure meth coming from very elaborate labs in Mexico through the cartels. It really tears people up, and one of the groups that knows that the best is our local law enforcement police officers association. And once again, they've endorsed me because they know firsthand the hard work that I've done in our courts and have done right here in Cole County, both as an assistant prosecutor, municipal judge, and as the elected prosecutor. And not only have they endorsed me, but yesterday gave me another $2,000 contribution to help get their message of support for me out to the voters. And so the police know the crush of cases. They know who is best to handle that based on who they've seen doing the work. And I've been very humbled and honored by their endorsement in the past, and especially this time as well. As you know, when you talk about the crush of cases, we have 6 murder cases pending, as well as a host of violent cases generally generated by especially the hard drugs, crack cocaine, methamphetamine, which said is very pure, as well as the heroin that has hit our community and caused a lot of problems as well. And so I just feel like I'm very honored by their endorsement, and hope that the public who doesn't get to see as much of what I do as the elected prosecutor, what I've done in the last 12 years and 6 before that as assistant, that they can understand that they can rely on their law enforcement officers right here locally to give them good advice on I would be the best choice to continue as a prosecutor's office handling those serious cases that face us ahead.
Mark, how big is your staff these days?
Well, I have 6 assistant prosecuting attorneys that do only criminal work, and I'll just say those 6 assistant prosecutors all have more time and experience in the courtrooms than my opponent. And unfortunately, I'm not able to keep them as long as I'd like. Money issues on the county contribute to them generally staying 3 to 5 years if I'm lucky. I also have there's 2 prosecutors that do child support work in a 5-county area, and 2 investigators, 1 full-time, 1 part-time. We have 3 victim advocates, 1 by RACS, 2 victim advocates that I recently got within the last 2 years based on a VOCA grant, which is a grant from money collected from federal criminal defendants, so it's no tax dollars involved. And so that has helped us tremendously serve our victims here in Cole County.
What has changed in the prosecutor's office from maybe the time that you were an assistant prosecutor to now in this day and age?
Well, the main thing has been caseloads have changed. They've went way up. Drugs that we battled back then from 85 to 92, I can remember 1 heroin case here in Cole County that came through our office. Now way too many. 1 18-month period, we had 6 heroin overdoses. Not all deaths, fortunately, but that's just way too many in an 18-month period. The introduction into our country of just basically very pure sort of factory-made methamphetamine has really hurt, and it really destroys the people's lives, and it has caused many more cases, obviously, because the person gets addicted, they run out of their own money, they many times get barred off of their own families' property for taking things to get money to exchange it for the drugs. It's a bad cycle that they're in, and that is a very hard cycle to break. Then they get desperate and they break into somebody else's house to try to steal stuff. And so even though they're caught on a burglary or a felony theft, their root problem is they've become addicted to a very dangerous substance that there's plenty of public information out there that says don't ever ingest this, don't take it. They do anyway. They go down a spiral that many times does not get stopped until there's some incarceration applied. Then with some incarceration, that's another thing that's changed. Used to, a lot of times our judges keep a person in 90 days and then work for getting them a treatment. Now I think some of them get out too quick for treatment. Some have come back and thanked me they fought me then when they had to do the 90 days before they got treatment. They've come back and said, geez, thank you very much. Because when I look back, I haven't done drugs since. And I think it took that 90 days to start helping break down that feeling in my body to wake up in the morning and want nothing other than the drugs. No family, nothing. They give all that up for the drugs. And sometimes with some people, it simply takes that, and we have to make sure that is part of the process to hold a person accountable for the crimes they commit to get those drugs.
Cole County Prosecutor Mark Richardson in with us, running for re-election. Mark in with us on KWOS Open Air. Mark, is it frustrating for you, like so many folks out in the general public, to hear elected politicians, especially at the federal level, point to the drug problem and the addiction rates and all, but not offer any real concrete solutions to that? Because I know, a whole lot of DOJ money could go in the right direction just coming into your office, couldn't it?
Well, that's true, and there is that. The one thing that has helped tremendously this past year is the federal prosecutors through the U.S. attorneys are picking up some of our local cases as well as local cases for prosecutors throughout the state. And I've also been elected as the president-elect of the Missouri Association of Prosecuting Attorneys. And so as that, I get some additional information that they are helping very much. They're taking some of those cases. Obviously, when they take one of our cases that we filed, then we dismiss it once they take the case. The federal government is very well suited for working that case up to the larger distributors that are bringing the illegal drugs into our state and into our community. Of course, we have a very good narcotics operation too that focuses on moving up to the people, not the addicts on the street so much, but the people that are bringing it in and basically selling death and destruction, mocking our heritage as Americans by bringing that in and hurting the people in our community. And families will tell you, I feel like I've lost my child because he's so addicted. And there's that continual supply coming in, and we have to continue to redouble our efforts to cut that supply down, make it harder to get. Example is methamphetamine, I think, is cheaper now than it was 2 years ago because of the purity of it. But as the federal government goes, they are starting to get resources. In fact, one of my former assistant prosecutors recently been hired as an assistant U.S. attorney. He worked part-time with the U.S. Attorney's Office when he was in my office to try to help get cases over there that were on that larger scale that they could do a good job on. And some of the violent offenders cases, they have career violent offender statutes, career armed offender statutes that for violent people can get them 15 years without parole, things like that. And we hear a lot about, well, you're sending these nonviolent offenders to prison. No, we're not. If you look at our list, you'll see each month the great majority of people that gets into prison have been or are violent.
Mark Richardson, Cole County Prosecutor, running for re-election with us this morning on KWOS Open Air. Come back and talk to Mark maybe about the grand jury a little bit and how instrumental that has been, and also about how the heck with a caseload like you have, how do you get convictions? We'll talk to Mark Richardson more, our Cole County Prosecutor, when KWOS Open Air continues. John Marsh, Dick Aldrich, brought to you by Arts Pest Control. You stay, they go. Candidate and incumbent Cole County Prosecutor Mark Richardson in with us this morning. Mark, I remember early on in your campaign for prosecutor a number of years ago, the grand jury system was in debate, difference of opinion between you and your opponent that time around. For the general public and even those of us in the media, the grand jury can be quite the big question mark. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Well, sure. The grand jury is extremely important in a busy court system. It's a system where the witnesses testify to the grand jury. If the grand jury wants more witnesses, they can ask for more to come in later. But we present witnesses, including all cases from child sexual assault cases all the way up to the murder cases, to the grand jurors. They can decide those cases. They deliberate them and return their true indictments if they find probable cause for the case to move on into circuit court, or they can end the case by saying there's no probable cause for it to go on. Then, of course, that would result in us dismissing the case if it's been filed. But the grand jury is extremely important to our system. It involves citizen input right at the beginning stage of that case going to circuit court or not. And 12 grand jurors meet in secret. They hear evidence from sworn witnesses, including in our child sexual assault cases. Children have to testify as victims, or unless there's a forensic expert interviewer and the child meets the standards of being too traumatized to testify. But they hear the evidence and present it forward. And while I'm talking about children, there's no more vulnerable citizens in our county or in anywhere than our children. And when they're preyed upon, they can be horrific cases. The last 3 sexual assault cases that have been done in our office for jury trials resulted in punishments of 25 years imprisonment, 30 years imprisonment, and 40 years imprisonment. And it's one of the most important things to be able to get the results for our community, because communities that are able to establish a strong record on protecting those that are most vulnerable then stand very strong against all criminals that want to prey on people. My opponent, for instance, tried one felony criminal jury trial that was child molestation and resulted in 2 counts of not guilty. That's his first jury trial. That's his only jury trial that I know he's done. Doesn't mean he doesn't want to do better, but this is not a job to start as the prosecutor to try to do better or learn. This is a job where these verdicts must be reached to keep our community safer, and I'm the one to be able to do that.
Well, those child abductions, too, and we were talking with you off air and talking about the recent, the non-custodial mother who was finally caught again with her child who'd been taken from Warsaw, rather. But child abductions and murders and all, and that I know you wanted to discuss that, and especially how that's prompted the Amber Alerts that you get on your phone or hear on the radio.
Well, and thank goodness that's now in process. Police, I can tell you from working with them, and they call sometimes for legal advice in those, but they have protocols. And within that first 30 minutes, they have certain things they have to do, whether it's a relative abduction or stranger abduction. And it's staggering the amount of relative abductions that result in murder of children. And there is nothing that puts the pressure on the law enforcement system, and there's nothing that law enforcement will get in the way of getting as many resources as they absolutely have available to call in within those first few hours of either a stranger abduction or a relative abduction to try to make sure that they can get that child back in a safe place. And they sweat, they work hard, everybody stops to begin working on that. And that is why it's so important that if somebody does abduct a child, that there is a prosecutor that's going to bring that person to justice for doing that.
Another thing we discussed off the air is the number of violent cases that have turned up now in Jefferson City, and it's not generally Jefferson City people who are perpetrating a lot of this violence. A lot of this is spilling out of the larger communities, isn't it?
Well, it's staggering to see the number of shootings that involve a shooter and a shootee, both from somewhere else, driven out of high-crime urban areas, which have experimented for the last 25 years with liberal let's see what society did to this person to make them violent policies that ended up letting criminals go. That flushes some of them out here. We get shootings that don't involve any of our home people, so to speak, and all of a sudden we're on the map for a danger city, which is repugnant to all the work that our citizens have done over the years to keep our county and our city one of the safest in the state. It is something that's got to be addressed in the cities. We can no longer have these extremely high murder rates, and sometimes it's the black on black murder rate in Missouri is staggering, as it is nationwide, and so more will have to be done in these cities to keep that violence from getting flushed out to us. And many of the people that are trying to get out have children, and they want to get out to protect their children. I mean, 6-year-old child going to school in Chicago shot dead. Nobody wants that. But so they get out. But then what happens is they come here, and some of their associations the violent people that they had, then those people come down with them, and all of a sudden what was a good thing to get a child out of that violence ends up now some of that violence has come down. It's in our city. Our police train on it. They work on it. They keep note of it as best as they can, but it gets here, and it does put a strain on our police officers and our justice system with more cases.
Cole County Prosecutor Mark Richardson in with us this morning, running for re-election. Mark, before we let you out, make your pitch to the voters.
Well, I would ask the voters to think about this, is what the police officer said in their endorsement letter, the Police Officer Association. When you look at the person that's got to prosecute someone for hurting or killing your relative, you want someone that's experienced and able to get the job done, because not only does that get justice for your family, but it stands as a loud message to others who would perpetrate that kind of violence, that in this county, they will be prosecuted by an experienced prosecutor, over 34 years legal experience right here in this county, 18 years as prosecutor in this county, trying cases in our county, knows how to do it, and will get the job done to help your relatives hopefully remain free of crime. But if by chance they are, you will have a very experienced prosecutor seeking justice in our courts for that crime.
Cole County Prosecutor Mark Richardson seeking re-election. You'll see his name on the ballot at the polls come Tuesday in the big primary. Mark, as always, we won't keep you. Appreciate you coming in, taking time away from your busy schedule at the courthouse.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. KWOS